The smoke still rose from the ground, covering the battlefield in a thick gray fog. Broken ships lay scattered like dead beasts, their burning engines giving off sparks. The air smelled of blood, ash, and burned metal, a smell that stayed heavy. In the lungs, among the ruins, walked Kale, an alien father. His tall frame bent under the weight of sorrow. Kale's people had fought the humans for many years, and now the land was covered with the cost of war. But Kale was not searching for enemies. He was not looking for more blood. He was searching for only one thing: his son, Arian, who had gone missing during the last battle. Every step he took carried both fear and hope. Kale's eyes scanned the ground, moving over lifeless bodies, both alien and human. He forced himself not to look too long at their faces. His heart whispered, "Please let him be alive. Please let him be safe." The battlefield was silent now, except for the crackle of fire and the distant groan of collapsing ships. He remembered Arian's last words before leaving. "Father, I will fight for our people, and I will return." Kale had held on to those words, but the longer he searched, the heavier his chest grew. The battlefield gave no mercy, and Kale feared it had taken his son away. Suddenly, Kale stopped. From beneath a pile of broken metal, he heard a faint sound. A groan, a voice not of his kind. He pushed aside the sharp edges of steel. And there he saw him. It was not his son, it was a human. A young soldier with blood covering his face in uniform. His chest rose weakly, his breaths shallow and broken. Kale froze. Every instinct told him to end it. The humans had taken so much. From his people, from his family. They had destroyed his home, and perhaps even killed his son. And now, here one lay helpless before him. The enemy, the father, raised his blade. His hand shaking, one strike would end the boy's life, and perhaps give him justice. But something stopped him. The boy's eyes opened, weak, but filled with fear. And in those eyes, Kale saw something that made his heart pause. He saw youth, pain, and confusion. He saw the same look his son had when he was small and afraid. Kale lowered his blade slowly. His chest heavy, he should not have felt pity. But he did. The boy whispered something, his words broken. Kale could not understand the human tongue fully. But the tone was clear. It was not anger, but a plea for life. Kale looked around. No one else was near. The fog of smoke hid him from the eyes of soldiers who might still be alive if his people saw him now, helping an enemy. They would call him traitor. But Kale was not thinking of them. He was thinking of his son. He thought, if Arian is dead, I will not let another father's son die here. With strong arms, Kale lifted the human boy from the wreckage. The soldier groaned in pain, but his head rested against Kale's chest. The weight was light compared to the burden in Kale's heart. Step by step, the alien father carried his enemy away from the battlefield. As he walked, doubt grew inside him. What was he doing? Why save an enemy when his own son was missing? What if this boy's people had killed Arian? Anger burned inside him, yet it did not change the fact that he had chosen mercy. Kale moved through the ruined valley, his tall figure hidden by smoke. The boy's breathing grew weaker, his life slipping away with every moment. Kale pressed a hand to the wound on the boy's chest, trying to stop the bleeding. His mind told him this was foolish. But his heart told him otherwise. At last, Kale reached the edge of the battlefield, a safer path leading back to his village. He stopped there, standing between two choices. If he brought the boy home, his people would see him as a traitor. If he left the boy here, he would die alone. Kale looked at the boy's pale face and felt a strange pull inside. The father whispered, softly, almost as if speaking to his lost son, "I could not save you, Arian, but perhaps I can save him." And with that, Kale stepped forward, carrying the human into the shadows of his world. The battlefield grew quiet again. But the choice Cale made that day would change everything for him, for the boy, and perhaps for two entire worlds. The alien father, Cale, walked through the dark forest with the human boy in his arms. The fires of the battlefield still glowed behind him, but ahead lay silence. Each step he took was heavy. Not because of the boy's weight, but because of the burden in his heart. He had made a choice that went against everything his people believed. When Cale reached his home at the edge of the valley, he pushed open the old wooden door. Inside, the room was dim, lit only by the warm glow of a fire. He laid the human gently on a bed of furs, his breathing faint but steady. Cale looked down at the boy's fragile form and felt torn. Enemy or child? He could no longer see the difference. Cale fetched herbs and clean cloths, the same way he once treated his own son when he was injured. The boy groaned as Cale cleaned the wound, his eyes half open. For a moment, their gazes met, and the boy flinched in fear. He tried to move, but his strength failed him. Cale raised his hands slowly, palms open, showing no threat. "Calm, child," Cale said softly in his rough, alien voice. The boy did not understand the words. I understood the tone. For the first time, Cale noticed how young the boy truly was. Perhaps only 17 or 18, barely a man, not so different from Arian, his lost son. Cale's chest ached at the thought, and he turned away quickly, focusing on bandaging the wound as the hours passed. The boy drifted in and out of sleep. Sometimes he muttered words in the human tongue, dreams mixing with pain. Cale sat nearby, silent, his mind torn between duty and compassion. He asked himself again and again, "Why am I doing this? Why save the son of my enemy?" But every time he looked at the boy, the answer came without words. It felt like the right thing. Outside, the village was alive with whispers. Some had seen Cale carry a body through the forest. Rumors spread quickly. Had he found his son? Had he found something else? The people respected Cale, but they were not forgiving. If they discovered a human inside his home, they would see betrayal. Cale knew this. And yet he did not stop. The boy awoke fully by the second night, his blue eyes sharp with fear. He tried to rise, but the pain forced him back down when he saw Cale. His hands reached for a weapon that was not there. The alien father only shook his head slowly, then placed a bowl of broth beside him. The boy hesitated, his lips dry and cracked. He looked from the food to Cale, unsure if it was a trick. Cale sighed and took a sip himself, then offered it again. At last, the boy drank, and his eyes softened. No words were spoken that night. Yet something passed between them, a fragile thread of trust, as thin as spider silk. Cale saw the boy's eyes fill with confusion. Was this kindness or deception? The boy did not know, and neither did Cale, but still, he stayed. Days passed, and the bond between them grew in silence. Cale tended to the boy's wounds, and the boy began to heal. At first, he kept his distance, refusing food unless Cale ate. But slowly he learned that the alien meant no harm. He watched Cale fix broken tools, chop wood, and light the fire each evening. He saw not a monster, but a father, living in grief. One night, as rain fell outside, the boy spoke for the first time. His voice was weak, the alien words broken on his tongue. "Why? Why save me?" he asked. Cale froze, surprised he could understand. He answered slowly, "Because you remind me of my son." The boy's eyes widened, and for a moment, silence filled the room. He looked down, and Cale could see shame on his face. Perhaps. The boy thought of the war, the hatred between their kinds. The days turned into weeks. And though they still could not speak much, actions filled the silence. The boy began helping Cale in small ways, holding tools, gathering herbs, even feeding the fire. His steps were weak at first, but his strength returned, and each time he stumbled, Cale reached out to steady him. Without words, the boy began to see Cale not as an enemy, but as something else, a guardian, maybe even a father. But outside their walls, danger was growing. The whispers in the village had not stopped. One evening, Cale returned from gathering supplies and found two villagers standing at his door. Their eyes narrowed, suspicion sharp. "We heard sounds," one of them said coldly. "Have you brought something into your home, Cale?" Cale's heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. "You hear only the ghosts of war," he replied, his voice firm. The villagers exchanged looks, not convinced, but unwilling to challenge him directly. As they left, Cale closed the door quickly and pressed his back against it, his chest tight. The boy, watching from the shadows, understood more than words could say. He saw the risk Cale was taking to protect him, and in that moment, something changed in his heart. This alien was no longer just a savior. He was becoming something greater, something deeper. But danger was close, and the fragile bond they had built was about to be tested. Cale stood by the window of his small home, staring out at the quiet valley. The human boy lay resting behind him, his wounds healing faster now. The boy was eating better, speaking a little, even walking a few steps each day, but Cale's mind was not at peace. Every day his people came closer to discovering the truth. Every night, Cale heard whispers at the edge of the village, voices asking why he kept his door closed, why no one had seen inside. His neighbors remembered Cale as a strong warrior, a proud father, but now they looked at him with suspicion. He felt the weight of their stares pressing against him. Inside, Cale fought a war greater than any battlefield. One side of him said the boy was an enemy. The boy's people had destroyed cities, killed countless lives, and maybe even his own son, Arian. The other side of him said the boy was innocent, too young to carry the sins of war. He had looked into the boy's eyes and seen not a monster but a child. Cale asked himself every night, "Am I betraying my people, or am I protecting something greater?" The boy, still weak but curious, began to move around the house. He touched the strange alien tools, the carvings on the walls. He stopped at a wooden frame. Picking it up with trembling hands, it was a picture Cale and Arian, smiling together. Long before the war, the boy turned to Cale and asked softly, "Your son?" Cale froze, then nodded. "Yes. My son." His voice cracked, the pain clear. The boy looked down, guilt flickering across his face. Perhaps he wondered if his people were the reason Cale's son was gone. That night, Cale dreamed of Arian. He saw his son standing at the edge of the battlefield, calling for him. But when Cale ran forward, the figure changed. It was the human boy. Cale woke in a cold sweat, his chest heavy. He could not escape the truth. The boy reminded him too much of Arian, and that made the struggle inside him even harder. Days passed, and Cale's people grew restless. The council of elders began to question him directly. One evening, an elder named Vera came to his door. Her sharp eyes studied him as she spoke. "Cale, we respect your grief, but grief can make a man blind," she said. "Have you forgotten who our enemy is? Would you hide one of them in your home?" Cale's heart raced, but his face showed no fear. "I hide nothing," he said firmly. "I live only with memories." Vera studied him for a long moment before leaving, but Cale knew the suspicion had grown stronger. Inside, the boy had heard everything. When Cale returned, he looked at him with wide, worried eyes. Trouble?" the boy asked in broken words. Cale sighed and sat beside him. "Yes, trouble," he admitted. The boy lowered his head, guilt clear on his face. "Go," the boy whispered, trying to rise. But Cale's large hand pressed gently on his shoulder, keeping him down. "No," Cale said firmly. "You stay." The human looked up, surprised. "Why, my enemy?" he said slowly, testing the alien. "Words." Kale's eyes softened. "Because you are also a son." The boy blinked, and for the first time, Kale saw tears in his eyes. The silent bond between them grew stronger, but so did the danger. One evening, while Kale and the boy worked quietly by the fire, a loud knock shook the door. Kale opened it to find 3 young warriors from the village. Their faces hard. "We have orders from the council," one of them said. "We will search your home." Kale's heart thundered, but he stepped into the doorway. Blocking them, "No one enters my home," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. The warriors hesitated, for Kale was still feared as a fighter. After a tense moment, they left, but their eyes promised they would return. As Kale shut the door, he knew time was running out. His people would not stop until they uncovered the truth, and when they did, they would not forgive. Kale sat by the fire that night, staring into the flames. The boy slept nearby, curled beneath a blanket. Kale whispered to himself, "What am I doing?" Protecting him means losing everything, but letting him die means losing myself. The next morning, Kale decided to test the boy. He handed him a small wooden spear. The boy looked confused but held it tightly. Together, they stepped outside. Walking into the forest, Kale watched as the boy tried to follow his movements. Learning quickly, despite his weakness, there was determination in the boy's eyes. He stumbled, but he did not give up. For the first time, Kale thought, maybe this boy is not just a burden. Maybe he can survive. That night, as Kale sharpened his blade, the boy sat quietly by his side. Finally, the boy spoke in halting words. "I, not your son, but I can be." Kale's hand froze, his eyes wide. For a long moment, the fire crackled between them. Then Kale nodded slowly, his voice low. "Then you are mine." But outside, in the heart of the village, the council prepared their decision. Whispers turned into orders, and suspicion turned into action. Soon Kale would be forced to choose his people or the boy. Enemy or son. The night was cold, the fire in Kale's home burning low. The human boy sat quietly near the flames. Holding the wooden spear Kale had given him, he turned it in his hands again and again, as if trying to understand not only the weapon, but also the meaning behind it. Kale watched him, silent. His mind heavy with worry. He knew the council would soon act, and when they did, the boy's life would be the first price. The next morning, the valley shook with cries of alarm. Kale rushed outside to see smoke rising from the far side of the village. Raiders had come, not humans, but a rival alien clan that had long hated Kale's people. Screams filled the air as villagers ran for safety. Kale's heart raced, for he knew he had to protect his people, and also the boy hidden inside his home. He turned back, but before he could give an order, the boy stepped out of the doorway, weak but holding the spear tightly. Kale's eyes widened. "Stay inside," he growled. But the boy shook his head. Fear clear on his face, yet mixed with determination. "No," the boy said, his voice trembling. "Help you." There was no time to argue. The raiders were already in the streets. Their weapons flashing, Kale charged forward, his blade striking with the strength of a warrior who had fought for many years. The boy followed, stumbling at first, but then finding his rhythm. Though he had little skill, he fought with courage. He swung the spear clumsily, but when one raider leaped toward Kale, the boy thrust forward. The spear struck true, knocking the raider back. Kale turned, shock in his eyes. For the boy had saved him. The battle raged, and Kale and the boy fought side by side. It was as if two worlds had joined, alien strength and human determination. The villagers stared, disbelief written on their faces. They had long hated humans, yet here one stood, fighting for them, risking his life to protect an alien father when the raiders finally fled. Leaving the village in ruins, but not destroyed, silence fell. All eyes turned toward Kale and the boy. The people whispered, their voices sharp and confused. Was that a human? He fights beside Kale. Impossible. The council of elders arrived, their faces dark with anger. Vera, the sharp-eyed elder, stepped forward. Her voice cut through the silence. Kale, what have you done? Kale's chest rose and fell as he stood tall, his blade dripping with blood. This boy fought to protect us. Kale said firmly, he saved my life and the lives of others. But Vera's eyes narrowed. He is the enemy, Kale, and by keeping him, you dishonor us all. The villagers murmured in agreement, some in fear, some in anger. The boy looked around, his face pale. Realizing the danger was not over, he stepped back toward Kale, his hands shaking. Kale placed himself between the council and the boy, his voice hard. This boy is no longer my enemy. He declared, he is my son. Gasps filled the crowd. Never before had an alien called a human his child. The council's anger grew hotter. And Vera raised her hand. Then you leave us no choice, Kale. She said coldly, by our law, he must die. Or you must be cast out. The boy's eyes widened, and he pulled at Kale's arm, whispering, let me go, please. I do not want you to lose everything. But Kale shook his head, his deep voice firm. You are my son now, and no law will take that from me. The council stepped back, whispering among themselves. Finally, Vera spoke, her voice like iron. You have 3 days, Kale. Choose your people, or choose the human. If you defy us, you will both be hunted. The council left, and the villagers scattered. But their glares cut deep into Kale's back. Inside his home, the boy sat with his head in his hands, guilt tearing at him. You should have let me die. He whispered, now they hate you because of me. Kale knelt beside him, lifting his chin gently. My people may turn against me, he said, but I will not turn against you. The boy's eyes shone with tears. And for the first time, he whispered one word, softly, carefully, Father. The word struck Kale's heart like both a wound and a gift. He closed his eyes, remembering Orion, and whispered back, Son. But outside, the storm was building. 3 days was all the council had given him. And Kale knew that time would come when he would have to fight, not raiders, not humans, but his own people. The boy had proved his loyalty in battle, but soon they would face a test far greater. A test of love, honor, and survival. The village grew colder in the days that followed. Kale and the boy felt it in every look, every whisper, every door that closed when they passed. The people who once bowed their heads with respect now turned their faces away. Even children were pulled back by their mothers when they came near. Kale's choice had become clear to everyone. He was protecting the human. Inside the small house, Kale sharpened his blade slowly. His hands steady, though his heart was not. The boy sat near the fire, his eyes fixed on the flames. He had grown stronger, his wounds nearly healed, his movements firmer. Yet inside, guilt consumed him. Every time he saw Kale work with quiet patience, he whispered to himself, This is my fault. On the third night, the council gathered, their voices echoing across the valley. Drums called the people to the square. Kale knew what it meant. The 3 days had ended. The time for his choice had come. He entered the square with the boy walking close behind him. The villagers formed a wide circle, their faces filled with judgment. Vera, the elder, stood tall in the center, her voice sharp and unforgiving. Kale, she said, you were given time. Yet you bring the enemy still at your side. Her eyes burned into him. Will you abandon your people for this human? The crowd stirred, their voices rising in anger. Kill him. End the shame. But Kale raised his hand, and silence fell. His deep voice carried through the night. "This boy saved me, saved us," he said firmly. "He is not my enemy. He is my son." Gasps filled the air. Some looked horrified, others furious. But none dared laugh, for Kale's voice carried the weight of truth. Vera's expression hardened. "A son of human blood. You disgrace us, Kale." She lifted her staff, pointing at the boy. "If you will not kill him, then we will, at once." Warriors stepped forward, their blades gleaming. The boy froze, his breath caught in his throat, but Kale moved like a storm, placing himself between the boy and the council. "Anyone who touches him must first pass me," he growled, his eyes burning with defiance. The standoff held, the warriors uncertain. They all knew Kale's strength, his history, as one of the finest fighters among them. But Vera's voice urged them. "He has chosen the enemy. He no longer belongs to us." The boy's heart pounded, his eyes darting between Kale and the warriors. Suddenly, he stepped forward, pulling at Kale's arm. "Stop," the boy said shakily, his voice breaking. "This is my fault. I will leave." Kale's head snapped. Toward him, fury and sorrow in his eyes. "No," he growled, "you are not leaving me. Not like this." The boy shook his head, tears slipping down his face. "If I stay, you lose everything. Your home, your people. All because of me." Kale gripped his shoulders tightly, his voice fierce. "I have already lost my son to war. I will not lose another to fear." The boy's breath caught as he looked into Kale's eyes. In that moment, he understood Kale had truly chosen him. Not as a replacement, but as a son of his heart. The tension in the square grew heavier. Finally, Vera raised her hand once more, her voice ringing like iron. "Then you are cast out, Kale, both of you." The villagers gasped, but none spoke against it. Exile was worse than death. It meant leaving the safety of the valley, the food, the shelter, the only life they had ever known. Kale stood tall, his hand resting protectively on the boy's shoulder. "If exile is the price for calling him my son, then I pay it gladly," he declared. Without another word, he turned and began to walk away. The villagers stepped aside, some glaring with hatred, others with pity. The boy followed, his steps unsteady, but his spirit burning with new strength as they left the valley behind. The night stretched wide around them. The forest loomed dark and full of dangers. Yet Kale did not falter. The boy walked beside him, shivering but refusing to fall behind. For the first time, he spoke with quiet resolve. "You gave up everything for me?" Kale looked down at him, his face carved with both pain and pride. "For you," he said softly, "I gave up nothing. I gained a son." The boy's throat tightened, and for the first time, he whispered the word fully. Without fear, Father Kale's heart ached, but he placed his arm around the boy's shoulders. Holding him close as they walked, the valley lights faded behind them. Replaced by the endless shadows of the wilderness, they were no longer alien warrior and human soldier. They were father and son, bound not by blood, but by choice. Yet deep in the forest, unseen eyes watched them, hunters, soldiers, and enemies. Alike the path ahead would not be peaceful, for by choosing each other, Kale and the boy had made enemies on both sides, and soon, both human armies and alien clans would come for them. The forest was dark and endless, its trees rising like silent watchers. Kale and the boy walked for days, surviving on roots, berries, and Kale's hunting skills. The nights were colder, but Kale's strong arms kept the boy warm as he slept. They were exiles now, without a home, yet together they felt stronger than before. But danger was never far. Both humans and aliens had heard rumors of Kale's choice. The alien father who had taken a human as his son. To one side, it was betrayal. To the other, it was treason. Hunters from both worlds were sent to find them. Kale knew it was only a matter of time before they were caught. The boy tried to stay brave, yet Kale saw the fear in his eyes. "Are they coming for us?" he asked one night as the fire burned low. Kale nodded slowly, his deep voice calm. "Yes, they will come. Both your people and mine, but we will face them together." The boy swallowed hard, clutching the wooden spear Kale had given him. Together, that word gave him strength. On the seventh night, their fears became real as they crossed a river. Torches appeared on both banks. Dozens of warriors stepped out, humans on one side, aliens on the other. The boy's heart pounded, for he recognized the human banners. Among them stood a general with hard eyes, his voice booming across the water. "Kale, release the boy. He is ours. He is a soldier of Earth. You stole him from the alien side." Vera's sharp voice cut through the air. "No, General, the boy is no soldier. He is a poison in Kale's house, a shame to our kind. We will end this ourselves." The two armies glared at each other, but all eyes soon turned to Kale and the boy, caught between two worlds, hunted by both. Kale's grip tightened on his blade as he stepped forward. "You will not take him," he thundered, his voice echoing across the river. "He is my son. Not your soldier, not your enemy." "My son," the general laughed bitterly. "A human cannot be son to an alien beast," and Vera hissed. "And an alien cannot protect the blood of those who killed his own child." The boy's chest tightened, shame burning inside him. But then he remembered Kale's words, "You are my son now." No matter what, before Kale could react, soldiers from both sides charged forward. The boy grabbed Kale's arm, his voice panicked. "Run." But Kale shook his head, his eyes blazing with defiance. "No more running," he said. "We stand here." The clash was brutal. Blades and spears struck, torches fell into the river, and the sound of war filled the night. Kale fought like a storm, his strength unmatched, but the numbers were too many. The boy swung his spear wildly, striking one attacker, but then strong arms seized him. Humans dragged him back toward their side, shouting, "We have him. The boy is ours." Kale roared, cutting down 3 warriors in his path. But before he could reach the boy, alien warriors grabbed him from behind. In moments, both father and son were torn apart. Kale held by aliens, the boy held by humans. They were forced to their knees in the center of the riverbank, facing each other. The general stepped forward, his voice cold. "You belong to us, boy. You will fight for your people, and you will forget this alien." Vera's voice was sharper still, "And Kale will pay for his shame with death." The boy's heart pounded, terror flooding through him. He looked at Kale, and Kale looked back. No words were needed. The bond between them was stronger than chains. As soldiers raised their weapons, the boy cried out suddenly, his voice breaking through the chaos. "No!" he shouted, his body twisting free from the humans. He ran forward and threw himself in front of Kale, shielding him with his small frame. Gasps rippled across both armies. The boy's voice shook but rang with courage. "If you kill him, you kill me too. He is my father." For a moment, silence ruled the battlefield. The torches flickered, the river roared, but no one moved. Kale stared at the boy, his chest aching with both pride and sorrow. In that moment, he saw not just a human, not just an enemy, but truly his son. The general lowered his weapon slowly, disbelief in his eyes. "You would die for him?" he asked. The boy's voice was steady now. "Yes. He gave me life when no one else would. He is my family." Vera's face twisted with fury, but even she could not speak. For both armies had seen something they did not expect. Love where there should have been only hate. The standoff stretched long and heavy, weapons still raised, yet no one dared strike. In the boy's act of loyalty, both humans and aliens saw a truth they could not deny. War had blinded them, But here, in the bond between father and son, was something stronger than blood. The night ended not in death, but in silence. The soldiers slowly stepped back, unsure, their hearts shaken. The general turned away, his voice low. Take them both. We will decide their fate at dawn. Chains were placed on Cale and the boy, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. As they were dragged toward the camp, the boy leaned against Cale, whispering, "Even if they kill us, I am proud to be your son." Cale's eyes burned with unshed tears as he answered, "And I am proud to be your father." But dawn was coming, and with it, the final choice, life. Death or something greater. The dawn came slowly, painting the horizon with pale light. Cale and the boy sat in chains at the edge of the battlefield, guarded by both humans and aliens. The night had been long, but neither of them had slept. Instead, they leaned against each other, their bond stronger than the iron shackles on their wrists. The human general stood before his soldiers, his expression hard but uncertain. Across from him, Vera and the alien council prepared their judgment for the first time in years. Both sides shared the same camp, but not in peace. They were united only by anger and confusion over Cale's choice. The boy's voice broke the silence first, his tone firm, though his body trembled. "You can kill me if you want, but you will not take him from me." Gasps spread among the soldiers, for no human had ever spoken in defense of an alien. Cale turned his head, pride burning in his chest. His deep voice followed, "And if you kill me, know this, you kill." A father who chose love over hate. The crowd stirred uneasily. Some soldiers lowered their eyes, unsure. Even hardened warriors felt the weight of those words, but Vera's voice cut sharp. "Love. Foolishness. This boy is a weapon of our enemies, not your son." Her eyes burned with fury as she turned to the human general. "End this now, before it poisons us all." The general raised his hand, ready to give the order, but he hesitated. His gaze falling on the boy's small frame, pressed close to Cale. He had seen many battles, many young soldiers thrown into war, but never before had he seen such loyalty across enemy lines. "Why?" the general asked softly, his voice carrying across the camp. "Why do you choose him, Cale? He is not your blood. He is your enemy." Cale lifted his head, his voice low but strong, because blood does not always make a son. A heart does. "And this boy, he is mine." The boy's eyes shone with tears, and he whispered for all to hear, "And he is my father." "No matter what you say," silence followed, heavy and deep. The general lowered his hand slowly, his voice rough. "I have led soldiers my whole life. I have sent many to die. But I have never seen a bond like this." His words made his soldiers shift uneasily. Vera's eyes widened with disbelief. "You cannot be swayed by this. He betrays us all." But it was too late. The seed of doubt had grown in the hearts of both armies. The boy looked around, his voice trembling but brave. "Look at us. Look at what hate has done. I should hate him. He should hate me. But he saved me. And I saved him." He lifted his chained hands high, his voice rising. "If we can stand as father and son, why can't you stand as more than enemies?" The words struck like lightning. Even the hardest faces softened. Soldiers glanced at one another, their weapons lowering slowly. They had fought for years, shed blood for reasons most of them no longer remembered, and here, in front of them, stood the proof that peace was possible. Cale's deep voice joined the boys. "You call him enemy, you call me traitor, but together we are something greater. We are hope." He stepped forward, pulling against his chains, his eyes burning. "With truth, kill us if you must. But know this, our deaths will not end our bond, and it will not end the truth you have seen with your own eyes." The general looked at his soldiers, saw doubt and hope mixing in their faces. He lowered his sword to the ground, the metal ringing softly. "No more," he said firmly. "Not today. Not like this." One by one, the human soldiers followed, dropping their weapons on the alien side. Whispers turned into silence. Even Vera faltered as her people began to lower their spears. The weight of old hatred was crumbling, piece by piece. The chains around Cale and the boy were cut. They stood free, side by side, father and son. The boy leaned against Cale, his voice quiet but strong. "You gave me life. Now we give them hope." Cale's arm wrapped protectively around him. Together, they faced both armies. No longer afraid, the general stepped closer, his eyes still sharp but softer than before. "You are not enemies to me," he said quietly. Vera hissed, but even she saw her people were no longer with her. The old ways of hate had cracked, and she could not hold them together. Cale looked down at the boy and whispered, "This is our beginning." The boy smiled faintly, his voice full of quiet strength. "Yes, Father," as the sun rose. It touched their faces with golden light, the battlefield that once promised. Death now carried the first breath of peace, not because of councils, not because of generals, but because one alien father chose compassion and one human boy chose love, and together, they became more than enemy and son. They became the reason. Two worlds could dream of something greater.